Alright, let's take a look at a classic.
Good old Angel's Envy.
Very, very, very obvious smell of port.
I wouldn't say super obvious. Like it's like you took bourbon and threw some berries and fig on the end of it. But I definitely would not say it's super obvious just because of how light it is, because it is only 86 proof.
I was gonna say I'm getting a lot of it though. So
I do get a lot of it, but like I don't know if I'd immediately identify it as port. I would say berries and a little.
I was gonna say. I mean, I know it's port. That's why I'm saying
That's
it's
port.
but like
I would
it
say
is
it's
berries.
I would say it's like a red berry forward bourbon, which isn't uncommon. I think I've had a couple different bourbons where I was like, I definitely get berries on this. Regular Elijah Craig, I actually get a lot of berry on.
The sweet wheat. I mean, that was cherry, but it's still like a pretty.
Yeah.
It's in the same family.
Yes.
In terms of how it smells.
But yeah, like a little bit of brown sugar, a little bit of vanilla, a little bit of sweet. It's smooth as hell. I mean, there's just not a lot of...
It's like, it's too light for me now.
Yeah, I feel like...
Like, whenever I got into...
It's definitely sweet.
It is. Like, it's sweet, it's smooth, there's not a whole lot of punch, there's no heat. Like, this was one of my favorites whenever I first got into bourbon for a reason, because it is just that easy drinking, and it is good.
And it's good. It's a good segue into bourbon.
But yeah, like, if you've had as many bourbons as, like, each of us have had at this point... There's nothing special.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't really do a whole lot for me. I mean,
the Isaac,
good, but...
Yeah, the Isaac Bowman port finish ruins this for me.
Oh, I'm sure.
Because that any higher proof port finish is just gonna ruin this for you if they do it right. It makes me like I like the flavor from this, and if it were higher proof, I'd probably put it up there, but it's too light to me.
It either needs to lower the price or it needs to up the proof. That's what Angel's Envy needs to do.
This would be good at $30.
Even 35,
as
I would probably buy it again.
As it is. If you want, I mean, if I were paying $50, I need it to be like that Isaac Bowman. I need that. I need it to be this, but on steroids.
It's also 55, so like at that point, it's like, would I rather have this or would I rather have Woodford Double Oak, or would I rather have Knob Creek Cask Strength Single Barrel? Like,
I'd spend $5 more to get something a lot more potent and a lot more complex than this is.
Like, if I was to get something for the same price that's also port finished, Glenmorangie, La Quinta Reuben, which is a port finished Scotch, it blows this out of the water. And even like other port finished bourbons, I would still say I would take that over those bourbons.
Oh yeah, this is like the standard for a port finished bourbon, but it's the standard because it appeals to a lot of people.
If anybody wanted to get into bourbon, this is what I would recommend. Like this is
Basil Hayden. Those are the exact types of bourbon to get. Calumet Farm. Even that Virginia Black, from what I've seen, if that's the tasting notes you're in for, it's good, but it's light, and that's exactly what this is for. But this is not. If you're bigger into bourbon like we are, it gets to a point where you have other things you prefer at the price. Yeah,
the little flavor you get is good, but there's just not enough punch for what you pay for.
Right.
And that's some of the arguments I've had with people is they're like, Angel's Envy is so good. What are you talking about?
I have so much more flavorful $40 bottles than this. That Weller Antique, store pick, $40.
Yeah.
And it blows this out of the water in terms of any kind of flavor.
Yeah, like...
Granted, again, that's comparing something different, but it's the same idea of the amount of flavor you're getting.
Again, it's why, like, I'll argue with people who, like, worship Angel's Envy, who say that they're bourbon drinkers, because I'm like, you're paying $55 for non-age statement, like 4 to 6 year whiskey that's 86 proof that spent a little bit of time, like less than a year in port barrels.
Like, I could see this being a daily drinker, but like I can't see this being like a true bourbon drinker's absolute favorite, absolute best flavor, most complex.
See, but even as a daily drinker, I don't think that price-wise it qualifies for that.
Right. I mean, it's a daily drinker if cost isn't an option, or if cost isn't a barrier.
Exactly.
But you don't, like, you want something super easy drinking to drink on the daily, and then you want your Friday night pour to be something special. That's when I see it being a daily drinker. But, like, it has those kind of qualities, I guess, is more what I mean to say.
Yeah.
I can
Even if
understand
the price
that.
doesn't put it.
But I mean, like, to me, it's like, this is the casual drinker, like, bourbon drinker's bourbon. That's what
Right,
this is.
and none of this means it's bad at all either. It just means that if
Yeah,
you're
it's
into bourbon, this isn't going to be for you.
No, but, like, if you're getting into bourbon, this is the first one I would recommend to you. Like, if you are
Right.
not super into bourbon and you want to get into it a little bit more, this is one of the top two I would recommend, without a doubt.
It'll be one of those ones that you'll always hold a special place for, but it'll never be the one you go to once you start branching more into it.
Oh, no, I wholeheartedy respect Angel's Envy for what it is. Again, it was my favorite bourbon whenever I was first getting into bourbon. Like, I would buy bottles of this end on end. Because, like, I would buy my cheap-ass, like, Wild Turkey or Evan Williams Black for, like, my get drunk nights. And then whenever I wanted to sip something, these would be the bottles I would buy.
And then obviously as you build the taste, you need the whiskeys to scale up with it.
Yeah.
And this is one of those ones that just gets left behind when you start building that taste up.
And that's what happened. It got left behind because it could not compare to, like, the other things I was tasting as my palate developed.
Right.
So
It is solid for what it is, but it's what it is.
yeah, if you want to be like a casual whiskey drinker, or if you want to just get into it, I would recommend this for that because it's one of the best options on the market, without a doubt.
Right.
If you're a bourbon drinker who hasn't had it before,
Go to
pass
a
up
bar.
on
Go
it.
to a bar and try a shot of it, or try a glass of it. Don't dump money on a bottle.
Yeah, I would agree with that
Because
statement.
now there might be hardcore bourbon drinkers that this is something that fits into what they want, but like it's just less likely.
Yeah, there's just, I mean, the flavor's fine. It's just, it's not complex. And
It's not. There's not a like. It has promise to me.
Yeah, it has promise, but at $55.
As a bourbon drinker, it has promise. If I were just getting into it, this would be what I want. But
At $55, I just can't see myself.
I need a cask
buying
strength
that
of this.
over.
Is what I need. A cask strength of this would
There is
probably
a
make me.
cask
I know
strength.
there is. That's what I need. Is that would probably. That would change all of my complaints about this, where you get all the raw flavor, you get the warmth, it has a lot to back it up. I would like that so much more.
You want to know why I haven't tried it yet?
Mm.
Because it's $200 fucking.
I know.
I have a hard time spending $70 on a bottle. I ain't dropping $200 on a bottle of bourbon.
Yeah.
Although, the way things are going now, if things don't change, I mean, I feel like MSRPs are going to go up and we will start seeing more $100+ bottles of bourbon.
Yeah.
I think that that's just a matter of time at this point because the demand has exceeded the availability.
Imagine in 10 years you're paying $80 for what we just tried. No, thank you.
No.
No, thank you.
Yeah, Angel's Envy is actually technically kind of allocated too.
It's because again it's spiked in popularity and you got a lot of people with more money sitting around that want their sipping bourbon but aren't into bourbon like we are.
Yeah. Because like to a lot of people, like even 95 proof is hot, so like an 86 proof is exactly what they want.
Yeah, when I'm talking whiskey with my friends who don't drink whiskey, I'm like, oh, it's 90 proof. They're like, whoa, that's like it's 90 proof. I'm like, yeah, it's only 90. And they're like, what do you mean only 90? I'm like, dude, I pour 122 and drink it without adding any water or ice. Like, 90 ain't shit. 90 is the standard for me anymore.
Yeah.
If it's below 90, usually I don't want it.
Right, or I only want it on select occasions. Like, and case in point, there might be a time where I want this, but there wouldn't be enough times where I want it to buy a bottle anymore.
Exactly. If I want it, I'll have it at a bar. Whenever I have a cigar or something like that, where I don't necessarily want to focus on the whiskey, but I want like a good whiskey with it. Because
This is where I'd spend an extra $10-$20 and buy a different port finish that is higher proof.
or at that point, just spend the exact same amount and get a Scotch instead. Because
That too.
Glenmorangie La Quinta Reuben is like, I still think I haven't tried the Isaac Bowman yet, but I can't say enough good things about Glenmorangie La Quinta Reuben. Like it's probably my favorite Scotch. And then of course you have Balvenie Portwood, but that's like $300 a bottle.
Yeah. Isn't that a 21 year?
I think so.
It's a 17 or a 21. I want to say it's a 21. The 17's like,
I think that's a double wood.
there's 2 double woods.
All I know is that the Portwood is above 20 years.
It's a 21 then.
21, okay.
My store has it, actually.
Do you still have the Elijah Craig 18 year? I might think about getting that.
I would, but again, we were just talking about I can't spend $200 on a bottle.
Well, they overcharge for that because it's supposed to be what, $150 on.
$140 MSRP. The average is actually right about. The average price across the country is about $200.
So
it's not terribly upcharged, but when we're used to things being close to MSRP, it's high.
I think that FWGS is finally trying to play around with secondary prices and seeing what they can do. I don't think they're going to do it now that they're seeing that, oh, this stuff is just sitting on shelves. We probably shouldn't do secondary pricing.
I don't even think that was the case on this. They probably just couldn't get as good of a deal as they do with a lot of other stuff.
That might also be the case.
Where they may have got it at 120 and they need to make their money, or 110 or 100 and they need to make their money off it.
That is also a good point.
Yeah. But, yeah, Angel's Envy. Yes, it's okay, but it's
Angel's
great
Envy,
if it's you're getting into bourbon or you aren't going to get into bourbon like we do. But if you're a bourbon drinker, it leaves a lot to be desired.
Yes.